Game Changer by Hedgehog. Chapter 2 Life. The next morning, Yejin woke up to her parents screaming at one another. This is becoming a daily occurrence, and no matter how often the girl tried to keep calm and talk to them, nothing ever helped. Despite doing her best to persuade Hoon into keeping his mouth shut, the little boy still blabbed, and Yejin earned a half-hour lecture last night from both parents. Sad as it sounds, the girl was a little happy to see them agreeing with each other for once. But with her not being on their good side, she needed to escape the house without them noticing. After putting on her school uniform and tiptoeing down the hall to the bathroom, the only thing missing was breakfast. Knowing better than to enter the kitchen where her parents were, the girl opted to climb out of her bedroom window. According to her phone's lock screen, she was right on time for school. A gurgle came from her stomach, and she knew there was no way to hit the cafeteria for a bite to eat before homeroom started. Yejin may not have perfect grades, but she prides herself on never being absent or tardy, even though no one would notice or care if she was. There were 3 minutes before class started when she walked on campus. She tried not to come this late, but it happened enough in her 2 years to where she knew the best route to get through the traffic. Paying no mind to who was in the group in front of her, only caring that they were walking far too slow for her liking, Yejin did her best to step up her pace and go around them. When she heard a "hey" come from behind her, she automatically called it off as not being intended for her. Then she felt a harsh tug in her backpack, yanking her body in the opposite direction of where she so desperately wanted to go. The grip didn't loosen after a few seconds. Yejin tried to just keep walking forward, but the person behind her was not about to let that happen. "Hey, I'm talking to you," she heard in her ear, way too loud and close for comfort. The girl felt the subtle warmth of the person's body heat wither as they pulled away from her. Next thing she knew, Jackson and his group were in front of her, and Wang himself yet again had his hold on her. Well, her backpack this time. She saw their smirks and cocked eyebrows as they all hushed whatever conversation they had been having. "Are you ignoring me? I thought we were friends," he said in her ear, loud enough for his friends to hear and to make the girl's eardrum pound, causing a headache. She said nothing in response, knowing that people only want a response to keep them going. If she stayed silent, like she always has, then this would all be over. Yejin stood there, in front of the boys, as Jackson kept a grip on her bag. When the bell rang, alerting them that class was starting, she panicked. She was now tardy. For the first time in years, Yejin was late for school. She couldn't help but blow air out of her nostrils in a mix of annoyance and stress. This was enough of a reaction for Jackson to respond to. "The bell just rang. Are you upset?" Jackson said a bit softer, but still holding a tone of dominance and false pity. To her rescue, the group started to part ways, coming up with half-baked excuses as to why they couldn't miss class. Even his friends could feel how awkward and unnecessary their interaction was. The boys broke off until it was just Yejin, Jackson, and Jebom. The girl stared off into the neighborhood across the parking lot while the two kept their eyes locked on her, waiting for the slightest action that they could pick apart and laugh at. Yejin started to count in her head, doing her best to find things to distract her from the situation. Once she got to 19, Jebom clicked his teeth. "Later," he said, eyeing the girl one last time. He and Jackson did some sort of handshake that Yejin couldn't make out from the corner of her eye. Jackson stood beside her, death grip on her bag, in the middle of the full and silent parking lot. Getting tired of standing still and growing more anxious of having to tread into the office for a note to class, she started weighing her options. She could try to pull herself free, but Wang was on the wrestling, basketball, and football team. He would for sure overpower her strength-wise. She could take off her bag and run, but then she'd look stupid and not even be able to do schoolwork. As Jackson's glare never faded, she thought of how friendly he used to seem. He was always laughing and cracking jokes, and acted nice enough from the little she saw of him. Maybe if she just tried to be polite or something, he would leave her alone. "Can we go to class now?" she asked, right before breaking her view of the road and focusing on his face. She wasn't a fan of smiling, and she knew if she tried, it would look awful and forced. So the girl did her best to widen her eyes and not frown, hoping that made her appear somewhat happy instead of nervous and ticked off. Jackson looked her in the eyes, and Yejin could swear he forgot to breathe. He said, before blinking for the first time in 30 seconds. "Yeah," he finished. With that, he let go of the girl's backpack and scratched the back of his head. Yejin felt a twinkle of sincere happiness as she was freed, only to be replaced by the reality of the punishment awaiting her for being late. The girl thought that if Jackson were her friend, or if this was middle school, she would have yelled at him and made endless sassy comments about his appearance and anything he did. But that was then, and this is now. In this now, Yejin is too meek to dream of speaking up and telling Jackson that he had been stepping on her foot the entire time. The girl walked into the building, not caring that she could sense Jackson right behind her.